technological evolution to come together. That if we have consciousness, evolution, more meditation, spiral dynamics, and I've seen this in the teal organizations movement by itself, it doesn't have the power that it needs to really spread through society. Ideas spread through society now is through technology, right? And we see this with the algorithms that are crashing democracy by creating division, right? We don't need to wait for artificial intelligence to mess up society. It's been doing it for 10 years because my feed is a kind of artificial intelligence, right?
So you're very kind about the 10 years.
I mean, it has been well understood.
At least, yeah.
When did the Netflix documentary come out, right? It's been a bunch of years.
Yeah.
It's clear that ideas and society is fundamentally shaped by technology now. And that if the technology is not shaped by our views, our values, then we just end up going to multiplying the worst characteristics of game A, and there's one quote that I really love from the Palantir guy, who's actually very smart. I watched the video with him. I agreed with 80% of what he said, just not his vision of what the future should look like. But he said, or there was an interview of somebody that worked there and said, like, Palantir went, democracy, it's messy, it's complicated. We won't bother with that. We'll just control the technology stack of society and shape the future that way. There was a light bulb moment for me because there is similarly wise AI and these things. If we do not intentionally come together and have a conversation of what values are we putting in, it is no longer true, and it certainly hasn't been true since social media, but it's definitely not true that technology is value neutral. So if we are not consciously thinking of what values and what worldview the technology is bringing forth, then there is no way to bring forward the bigger ideas. Now, I'm a technologist, so I agree with you. It's not one thing, it's many things. However, we need underlying protocols that let us move in a much richer way between software. I do not want to make any more profiles. I do not want to make a new social graph. I need the ability to move from application to application with my friends, with my social graph. And to develop new protocols, what protocols have we developed over the last 25 years, right? Okay, we keep on iterating HTML, but that comes from the 90s. We've failed on the chat protocols. Blockchain did a bit of a thing, but it hasn't become mainstreamed in any kind of way, shape, or form. So I believe that in order to create, and we've been running small tech experiments for 20 years, right? I've been hearing open source, this, that, open office, high-low, there's so many of this. Everybody's making their own alternative social platform, right? And it's too many small experiments. So I believe what we need to find a way to create the movement so that there is shared protocols that will enable lots of rich applications and many applications. To me, RegionOS is not one thing. It's 1,000, 1,000,000 different applications, but with a set of much richer primitives underneath. A social that you can move from application to application, sovereign data, those things. But for me, it's especially the social graph, and one which is richly annotated by different applications.
Right. You sound like Arthur Brock.
Like who?
10 years ago. Arthur Brock, 10 years ago.
Good ideas never go away, right?
No, but I'm not saying that, right? What I'm saying is that, yes, it is a good idea. And there are small teams who have been working on it. And some of them have succeeded and not succeeded in different ways. And adoption is key. And it's not clear that the path towards what you were saying is to bring a whole bunch of people thinking about this together. Like, it is possible. So first of all, it's not clear that any of your assumptions are true, right? Like, oh, we have to bring consciousness and technology together. I think so too, but I'm not sure I'm right. I mean, I'm pretty confident that I'm right. But anyway, but so this sounds exactly like the holochain, right? How and scepter vision that Zippy and Art came up with. And they're not wrong. And they tried some stuff, and maybe they're making progress. Like, I'm tentatively optimistic at this point, right? Which is better than I was a year ago. A year ago, I was like, I haven't written them off. But what they're trying to do is incredibly hard, right? Which includes everything, including changing the URL system, right? Like, it's very complex, right? And if you start talking to them about Scepter, you could do that for a lot of months, and they might be the smartest people in the and they might not. They might be completely unrealistic and going down the wrong path for creating this new OS, right? And I'm giving them as an example because they're way ahead of us in terms of how much they've developed. So that's one direction you could say. And I think you and I would probably agree that that's one of many of the things that I said we should all be trying out for different applications and deployments. And the reason they've gotten as far as they've gotten is very simple, right? It's because they got more money. And you can see the same with Dark Matter Labs, right? Indy Johar has a whole bunch of things under his little umbrella and it's a big umbrella under Dark Matter Labs. He's genius and trying a whole bunch of experiments and able to direct funding into places where he and his team believe are appropriate, including, the river's going to speak for itself. We're going to create this AI system that's going to allow, there's really amazing stuff already going on in this area, not under the umbrella of Regen OS, but with these separate projects. And so that's the other thing about the premise, which is interesting, and I like it. And the question of who gets the money is kind of, there's ways that gets decided in the current universe, and the two projects that I've mentioned have some money, and there's other ones, right? You could look at what's going on with, Audrey Tang and Taiwan, and they have some funding for that because they're working with the Taiwanese government. You can look at what's happening in Bhutan, and there's a bunch, at least dozens of projects that, I wouldn't say hundreds, but dozens of projects that have fair amounts of funding to do what we're saying we want to do with Regen OS. And I think that's great, right? And I do think, again, I don't want to say anything against what Regen OS is saying. I'm just saying, okay, that's happening.
So I love it that you brought in the investment piece, because this is another key piece in my thinking, and why I do think we need a umbrella narrative and everybody doing their own little thing, which has been happening for 30 years. I've been hearing about crypto since 94, because Ian Goldberg, who was Vitalik's thesis supervisor, was 2 years behind me in university. So I kept on sitting around and listening about this stuff. And they were experimenting with this in the 90s. If we do not have an overriding, some kind of an umbrella that we can all go under, then it's all just individual things. And we do not see ourselves, the power of how big we are, and the world of investment doesn't see that we are a thing in the world. This has been my really painful learning from my 10 years in the 12 years in the regenerative village building space, is that if you do not belong to an investment narrative, it's impossible, very, very hard to get funding. You either have to have a rich uncle or some lucky with some government. You're not part of any investment. Runs along investment narratives, whether it's .com or AI now or SaaS or